So a little while ago, there was a guy that came visiting Chabad, and he kept on saying he's in the textile business. And my husband kept on saying, "Oh, you're the shmata business." And he's like, "No, the textile business." He's like, "No, the shmata business." Shmata, for if you don't know, is like literally means rags, but it usually means like just people who sell like clothing or bolts of cloth. And the guy finally said, "No, this is very different. Textile means like upholstery, um, fabrics and things like that. And shmatas just means like, fabric for clothing. So don't mix it up. Like, God forbid. Okay. So, King David, he, in the Tehillim, he writes, Zmiros Hayuli Chukacha, I think. So the Torah, the laws of the Torah are like song. And because of this, he got in trouble. We're going to talk about that today, that he got in trouble because he called the Torah song. And the Torah is something much more serious and much more, I guess, important or whatever. It's more than song. Song is more like, kind of like kind of like he degraded the Torah by calling it song. And why is that? So what's a song? A song is like repetitive, right? You like it's you sing the tune over and over, or it rhymes. There's a certain like rhythm to it. It kind of shows repetition and pattern. It's like the same, the same, the same. And the Torah is never. We don't ever say the Torah is the same. We're doing mitzvahs is the same. You want to say that it's something different. It's something new. It's new discovery. Every time you learn Torah, people say, "Oh, well, you finished learning the Torah." There's no such thing as finished because there's always something new to discover in learning Torah. So the same thing in life, right? Sometimes life, like you're just doing the same thing every day. You get up, you go to your job, you do the, or whatever it is that you do. You go, you do the same thing, same thing, same thing. And okay, you do it, no problem. But is that what life is about? Or is life about finding new things in the stuff that you do every day, finding something new about it, some new discovery, some interesting thing? So we're going to talk about this today in connection with the Parsha. Um, Now, and we're going to discuss about the King David's a lesson from King David's, I want to say, quote unquote, mistake. That life is not just the same old repetition, but really we have to discover new things every day. So, question for you guys is, um, do you feel that there's comfort and predictability, or is it kind of dull? What's the line? What's the balance between living like that stable, um, I want to say repetitive life to it just being stuck and boring and you feel like you just need something different.
I'm not sure I
So like I'll
understand
tell
the
you that, like when I went to overnight camp when I was a kid and I used to like it, like I knew, like in the morning this was the time that you did that we went to had lineup, then we had davening, and then we had breakfast, and then we had an activity, then we went swimming. And and then sometimes like they would, okay, so once in a while they would have a special day. Oh, today is carnival day, and like the schedule would be all different. Or today is whatever day, and the schedule would be all different. So, but I liked, on one hand, you like the stability of having like your schedule, right? Your routine.
question.
But when does routine get boring? So like one year in camp, every other day was a special day, and I never got that routine. And I couldn't like it. And I never felt like, oh, I just want to have a regular normal day in camp where I do my regular activities and swimming and this and that. So when is your life, the routine of your life, do you feel it's like good and it's nice? And when is it just too boring, or when does it get redundant too much? When do you feel like you need something different? What do you do to change that? Or Lana's on her way. Page
It's
127.
it's so funny. My sister and I were literally just talking about this today because she was talking about that exact same thing. She's in a very regimented schedule and she's going to be doing volunteer work with like women in shelters that were abused that have children to kind of just do something good and get out of a rut. And we were talking about the kind of things that we can do. And I was actually like thinking of taking an improv class. So, anyways, I
Oh,
think
how
it's
fun.
yeah, I think it's good to have like a base of routine, but that if you just stay locked in it, you're not living so
Mhm.
much outside of the boundaries of your own life, and then life just closes in on you. So I think it's good to
Right.
have a balance.
Right,
Right. You just got to shake it up every once in a while.
Shake it up, exactly.
But is there a way to find routine? I mean, fun in your even in your routine without that extra. Okay, I'm gonna go volunteer this, or I'm gonna go on a special trip.
I think that's hard because I think a lot of us are leading very insular lives in very similar groups of people, and we don't realize how much we're missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay, so let's get it on with our class. Let's see, let's start the slideshow. Okay. 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 So the parsha begins with, with the jobs of the tribe of Levi. Tribe of Levi had three general families, and each family had a different job. One of the jobs was to carry the vessels of the Mishkan. So like they're very holy vessels, right? We have talked about the ark, the table, the showbread table, the menorah, and one of the tribes of Levi, one of the families of Levi carried just the curtains, and one of the tribes of Levi carried the beams that held the Mishkan together. So we're going to read in text number 1 that that some of them got wagons to carry their stuff on and some of them didn't. And let's discuss what and why. So let us read text number 1. Shelley, we'll have you start.
Okay, so Moses took the wagons and the cattle and gave them to the Levites. He gave 2 wagons and 4 oxen to the sons of Gershon according to their work, and he gave 4 wagons and 8 oxen to the sons of Merari according to their work under the direction of Ithmar, the son of Aaron the priest. But to the sons of Kohath he did not give, for incumbent upon them was the work involving the holy objects which they were to carry on their shoulders.
So because they were such holy objects, they did not put them in wagons, but they had to carry them like they had like these long poles, and they held the poles on their shoulders. Let's read what the Rambam says about that in text number 2. Here's a picture of them going through the desert. Okay. Okay, go ahead, Sylvia.
When the ark is transported from place to place, it should not be transported on an animal or on a wagon. Instead, it is a mitzvah for it to be carried on one's shoulders. Since David forgot and had it transported on a wagon, there was an outbreak of divine anger at Uzzah.
Yeah.
Instead, it is a mitzvah to carry it on one's shoulders, as the verse states, for the only task is their obligation. They shall carry it on their shoulders. When the Levites carry the ark on their shoulders, they should carry it face to face, with their backs pointed outward and their faces inward.
Okay, so the ark was so holy that it couldn't be carried on a wagon. They had to carry it on their shoulders, okay? What is this idea that the Rambam mentions that since David forgot and had transported on a wagon and there was an outbreak of divine anger at Uzzah? What's that all about? Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, so Aaron and all the vessels and everything for the Mishkan, for the tabernacle, was built in the desert, right, by the Jews. The Jews come to the land of Israel, and what do? They don't right away build the holy temple, but they put the Mishkan in a city called Shiloh, and that's where it resides, and that's where they go to bring sacrifices and to serve Hashem in Shiloh. Now, it was there for 400 years, okay? During that time, the enemies of the Jews at the time in the land of Israel were the Pelishtim, the Philistines, and one time they had a war with the Jewish people during that time, and part of their winnings in the war is they hijacked or kidnapped the Aron, the ark, and they kept it by them. But unfortunately, like every little thing started happening to, unfortunately for us, things started happening to them. They had all these kind of plagues fall upon them, and they couldn't understand what is going on. They realized it must be because they had the Aron, and the Aron must be so holy that it's giving them, like it's the God, Jewish, connected to the Jewish God, and it's punishing them for taking it. So the Philistines, the Pelishtim, wanted to get rid of the Aron, and they put it on a cart and they sent it off. And the cart ended up in a city that we all know today called Beit Shemesh. and it went to the house of a guy named Abinadab, and it sat there for a little while, for quite a few years. Eventually, when King David became king and he felt strong enough, he decided that he's going to try to bring the Aron back to Jerusalem, because that's where the center of Judaism is going to be. So he has this man, Abinadab's son, his name was Uzzah, drive the cart, and along with somebody else. Anyway, and they drive the cart to Jerusalem. Now the problem is that because it was such a holy thing, and remember God said that the law is you're not allowed to put the ark on a wagon or have animals carry it. The oxen, like, they started to stumble because God caused, like, there was something, the ark was too holy for this. And when they stumbled, the wagon tilted, and Uzzah wanted to save the Aron from falling. That would be a terrible thing if it fell. So he went to catch it, and because he touched the ark, one of the things that says in Torah, that anyone who comes close to the ark and touches it, they're not supposed to, dies. So he died. Okay? So let us read a little bit of this. Oh, there we go. Here's a timetable here if you want to see this. So the little timetable of the whole story I just said. Okay. Let us read this inside. Catherine, can you read?
Sure.
Okay.
And David arose and went with all the people that were with him from Baal Judah to bring up from there the ark of God, which is called a name, the name of God who dwells upon the cherubim, being upon it. And they set the ark of God upon a new cart, and they carried it from the house of Avinadav that was on the hill. And Uzzah and Acho, the sons of Avinadav, drove the new cart. And they brought it out of the house of Avinadav, which was on the hill with the ark of God, and Acho went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel made merry with all manner of instruments, cypress wood, and with harps, with psalteries and with timbrels, with sistra and with cymbals.
Okay, that continues. Sorry.
And they came to Goren-Nachon, and Uzzah put forth his hand to the ark of God and grasped hold of it, for the oxen swayed it. And God's anger was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there for his error, and there he died by the ark of God.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it was King David's fault that Uzzah died. Okay? And and it says he was punished by Uzzah dying because of him, because he called the Torah song, which we mentioned before. So because he called the Torah song, he caused that someone should die. Okay, it's like one bad thing leads to another. Okay, so how could David come to this? How could King David was a very, very holy man. He was a big tzaddik. He didn't really do, saying when it says that someone's so great has some type of fault, they're not like a person like me and you. It means that they did something that, like, for us, wouldn't even be considered a fault. But for him, I guess he was judged much more scrupulously before God. And it says, how could David do this? How could this all happen? Before I continue, I just want to share a little story. Sometimes, which we're going to discuss soon, sometimes there could be three people doing the same thing or going on the same path, and each could be in a totally different sphere. Now, what do I mean by that? So it says in the old days, in the 1700s, 1800s, there were a group of people called maskilim, which means like enlightened people. They were like the progressives, like people who like took on like a reform type of Judaism. They felt like enlightened or progressive Judaism of their time, and they obviously looked down at people who followed the authentic Torah. And one of them was once arguing with the fifth Chabad Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, and he said, "How do you speak of spiritual beings? How do you know that there's angels and all these different things? I never seen one. Like, who says there's any angels? Who says there's any spiritual, life?" And the Rebbe said, "Okay, imagine that you see a carriage on a road, and inside you have two learned men deep in thought, discussing high ideas and truth, okay? In front of the wagon, there's the wagon driver. He's sitting, And he's trying to think, how much am I going to make? How quickly are we going to get there? You know, how smooth is this ride going to be? And in front of him, there's a horse. Horses pushing the cart, carrying, whatever, pulling the cart. And the horse just sees the bale of hay that the rider is holding in front of him. And he's just saying, when am I going to get that hay? When am I going to get to eat? When am I going to get my water? So you have three travelers, same road, same pace, but each in a different world. So then this rabbi looked at the enlightened man, or they called him enlightened in those days, and said, are the angels not angels just because the horse is thinking about hay? So some people see things spiritually, some people don't. Some people have a spiritual sensitivity and see things deeper. Some people don't. Does it mean that it's not there? Does it mean the spiritual world doesn't exist? Does it mean that that's something holy isn't there because someone else doesn't feel or see it? No, everyone has their world, their bubble that they live in, but does it mean that the other person's world doesn't exist? Okay, so now taking that, we're going to go into a very, in a way, a mystical, deep concept in Judaism in this class. Okay, so let us read text number 4. Bonnie, are you able to read? I don't see.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, just speak close to the mic. Okay.
Rava taught, for what reason was David punished with Uzzah's death? He was punished because he called matters of Torah songs, as it is stated. Your statutes have been my song in the house of the pilgrimage. Hashem said to him, matters of the Torah are so difficult and demanding that it is written. Will you set your eyes upon it? Is it gone? And you call them songs? For this reason, I will cause you to stumble in a matter that even school children know, as it is written concerning the wagons brought to the tabernacle. But to the sons of Kohath he did not give, for incumbent upon them was the working involving the holy object, which they were to carry on their shoulders. David erred, and it brought it in a wagon.
Okay, so just because he made this mistake, so first of all, because he made the mistake of calling the Torah song, when Torah is much more holy and deeper than just song, which we'll discuss what that means. Now as I said before, now he got the punishment of having this man die because of him. He made a stupid mistake that everyone, and it says any school child who goes to a Jewish school, yeshiva, Jewish day school, knows that no one's allowed to touch the ark, and you're not allowed to put the ark on a wagon. You have to carry it, and only the tribe of Levi could carry it when it was time to carry
It
it.
just fall on the ground. Did he think it was going to break?
Yeah, that wouldn't be good either. That would be very, so you can't let that happen. I was wondering why I smelled rose.
Yeah.
Now, so it seems like King David's punishment was a bit over the top. Like, how could it be such a dramatic thing that happened because he transgressed or because he made a mistake of calling the Torah song? So because of that, he had to be faulted for someone else's death. It seems a little bit like extreme. So to answer this question, we are going to discuss something more about the ark, and understanding why they had to carry it on the shoulders, how they carried it exactly, and we'll learn some more stuff. Okay, so inside the ark was made up of 3 wooden boxes covered in gold. Yeah, and inside the middle box, there was a few things. Like, for example, one was the broken set of tablets. And Moses came up from the mountain and the tablets broke. That was in the ark. That was in the Aron. Another thing was in there, a little jar of mun, the first mun that fell from heaven.
Wow.
They put it away for people, everyone should remember that God always cared for the Jewish people and gave them food, even in the desert. Okay, so it was a holy thing. Let us read 5a. Anna, can you read?
Yes.
Great.
Now the tablets were God's work, and the inscription was God's inscription engraved on the tablets.
Okay. So Hashem wrote these, the first tablets Hashem wrote. He did it all by himself. And there was a miracle on this tablets that whatever side you looked at them from, all four sides, you saw the wording, like you're able to see the word properly. Like it was engraved through, but whatever side you looked on, it was as if it was the front. Okay, there was like no back or side to the tablets. Okay. So let us read text by Bilana. Can you read?
Now the tablets were God's work, and
No, the next one.
And the inscription in the words of Bartanura, it could be read from all four sides. What seems most correct to me is that this was miraculous, an act of God. The author of Asaram Ma'amarot writes on that statement. This was a divine act beyond our comprehension, not the ordinary handiwork that some can imagine, as if someone sketched it before us in the study hall, and the youngster wrote it.
So these tablets were very miraculous in a way. They almost didn't belong on earth. Inside the Aron, inside this ark, was a very miraculous thing, very holy thing coming from God, because it had, as we said, whatever way you looked at it, you're able to read it as if it was the front. It wasn't backwards, it wasn't sideways. It was a very special, handiwork, but godly work. Now, usually, God doesn't just make miracles for no reason. Like, why would he want these tablets to be down here on earth? But they represented some type of miracle, right? It was like something unusual. Usually that's not how things are. Why did he have to make that these luchos, that these tablets should be so multidimensional as noted? Why can't he just make them like regular, like a human would make it? Okay, why? Because the idea of front and back in Judaism or in Kabbalah has a deeper meaning. Okay, so we'll have to understand what front and back is, and then we'll see why the tablets couldn't have a front and a back. It actually was all front, and I'm going to call it that. Text number 6. Back to Shelley, if you're able to read.
Absolutely. Rabbi Hanina Bar Yitzhak said, there are 3 byproducts, reflections or lesser forms, in this world. The byproduct of death is sleep. The byproduct of prophecy is a dream. And the byproduct of the world to come is Shabbat. Rabbi Avin added 2 more. The byproduct of the supernal light is the sun, and the byproduct of the supernal wisdom is the Torah.
Okay, so there is, right, one, I think, was it when they make oil, the byproduct is styrofoam, correct?
Yeah.
Styrofoam isn't the main reason why they have all these refineries making oil, but it's a nice byproduct or whatever. It depends how environmentally, whatever you want. Okay, so the byproduct of the supernal wisdom is Torah. That's kind of like downgrading the Torah a lot. Like Torah is just a byproduct.
Shabbat too.
And Shabbat, right? Shabbat is, well, it's the product of the world to come. So why is it just called a byproduct? Now, if we look at the King Solomon, he calls Torah something very different, not a byproduct, but text number 7, back to Sylvia.
I was a nursling beside him, and I was his delight every day, playing before him at all times.
So this is why King Solomon talks about when he learned the Torah. It was a delight every day. He was playing with God. It was not just not a byproduct, a side thing, but it was a delight. It was something beautiful and wonderful. So when you talk about a byproduct, it's kind of something like, it's not inherently made for that specific thing. It's just, it wasn't made for its own sake. It was made for something else, and that's what happened. But when King Solomon calls it delight, it sounds so much more special and so much more precious. So we're going to discuss this idea. Why is Torah a byproduct? Why is it called a byproduct? And now To understand that, we're going to add something else to our little pile of new ideas today. And that is, there's a concept of pneumius, which means inner, and chatsonius, which means outer. So when we say someone who, like, the innermost dimension of something means like their core, their most authentic self. Okay, so that's like the delight. When you delight in something, it's like you really, really enjoy it, right? You have a pleasure in it. You're enjoying because it's an inner pleasure that you have from something. So that's what we call, and it's an inner thing, or in Hebrew, a pneumius. And chatsonius, which means outer, that sounds more like a byproduct. That's like your surface, your outer expression of yourself. So sometimes people see you from your outer expression, from your chatsonius, and sometimes your pneumius, your inner, comes through. Now, some people are called a pneumi because it means that like you see that really deep inside they have something there, something very strong, and you don't, what's on the outside doesn't really reflect what's going on inside of them. Okay, so Torah has both the inner, the pneumius side, and it has the chatsonius, the outer, the surface side. Okay, they have both these qualities. Okay, so hang on, I'm going to try to discuss it a little bit more. Text number 8a. There's the inner, okay, pneumius, the inner authentic expression of your deepest self, and chatsonius, the outer, less authentic expression shaped for others. So what others see you as and who you really, really are. Okay. So how is Torah both? Let us read text number 8a. Catherine, and it's another long one. I know you're getting into long.
Okay. Both are true. When it says the byproduct of the supernal wisdom is the Torah, it refers to the Torah that was given to us. This is called the level of the backside of Torah. The Torah presented to us. But the root, purpose, and essence of the Torah, about that it says, I was his delight every day. To explain, the aspect of godly wisdom as it is vested in the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah is called the backside of God's wisdom, because on every level, the backside is the outer and the lower gradations within that particular level. It's the part capable of extending downward to integrate within creation and give it life. The inner side is the level itself, as it is utterly united with God.
Continue.
This can be understood by way of a simple analogy from a human being. The soul has 5 graded levels within it: intellect, emotions, thought, speech, and action, each higher than the next. And action is the lowest of them all. The life force that spreads from the soul and manifests into action is as nothing compared to the life force that spreads into speech, and that in turn is as nothing compared to what spreads into thought, emotions, and intellect. So, too, in the very same way, whatever extends from God's wisdom to influence the lower realms is all as nothing compared to the inner dimension, as it is united with God, before whom all is as nothing. Any flow to finite created beings is, so to speak, a fallen delusion relative to God himself.
A little more.
Okay, from this it is understood that the Torah that was revealed to Moses, our teacher, is still called the backside, the byproducts of God's wisdom, but the essence of Torah, as it is in God's own knowledge, so to speak, that is the inner dimension.
Okay, so for the Torah to go from God's like most high, inner place to come to us that we can understand it a little bit, we only get like the outer surface. It has to go through all these gradations. Okay, and so if you look at Torah in that way, the way we look at it, the way we understand it, then it's like a byproduct. It's like only the outer dimension of the Torah. Even though we know the Torah has so much in it and so much core, do we really understand all of God's wisdom and inner workings from learning the Torah? Okay, so when we get it, it's like coming from the backside. It's coming slow. It's coming down like, and has to go through levels for us to really understand it. The tablets, the luchos, were from God directly. As we said before, he made them. There was no trickle down. He just brought them down. Enough that it was in some type of form that human can see it, but brought it down from a more inner place, from a place that was coming from a more inside, a more deep side of God. And because it came down like that, the essence of God was shown in it. So that's why it couldn't have a backside, because it wasn't a byproduct. It was actually of God's inner makings. So there was no backside. It was only the front side. All four sides were like a front side because it's all coming from Hashem's inner, from Hashem's. And another word, when we see in the Hebrew word pnimius in Hebrew, one of the meanings of it's from the word panim, which means face. So it's coming more from the face or from the inner reflection side of God. Text 8b. Batya.
The tablets in the dark were
Hold on a little closer.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
The tablets, or maybe I shouldn't read it. The tablets in the ark were drawn from the innermost dimension of holiness. This is why they had no front or back, even in the physical sense. The writing could be read equally from every side, something that defies human logic. This was because the higher inward light shone openly within them.
Okay, so it wasn't per se a miracle that Hashem was trying to prove us something. It was more of just a revelation of what the inner workings of God are. So, the idea, because the tablets came directly from God, we got to see a more inner side of God, which is something that defies nature here down on this earth. There was a certain revelation of God's inner side. Okay. Now, to understand this even further, I hope we're all following along. You're good. We're going to discuss two more concepts. One is desire, which is in Hebrew is ratzon, like will, your will to do something, your desire to want something or to do something, and tainug, pleasure, the pleasure you have in getting something that you wanted or getting your desire fulfilled. Okay. So each of these also connect to the two sides of a person, or two sides of Hashem. So a person, he does, he says, he thinks, he feels, they're all like more on the surface. They're all more of his outer expression of that person. And that is like desire. You want something. It's coming from something inside of you, but you still can like express or say, oh, I want this or I want that, right? Oh, I feel like I really need the whatever right now. Massage, a chocolate cake, I don't know. You have this like physical, emotional, spiritual need that you want to have fulfilled, okay? So that's coming more from the outer. Then you have pleasure. Well, how do you describe pleasure? Once you've got that massage, once you've got that chocolate cake, once you've got that thing, how do you explain it? How do you express that? It's a little bit of a harder thing to express.
Serotonins go up. Dopamines go up.
Right, but how do you actually express the feeling of that pleasure? Like the feeling of it. Yeah, you can explain it scientifically.
Just relax, like more relaxed, more.
But it's hard to, it's something coming from something deeper. The pleasure that you get is coming from much deeper inside of you.
Yeah.
Like it's a deeper feeling. It's a certain satisfaction, right? When your desire is fulfilled. It's filling that void or whatever it is. The pleasure is closer to your essence. So it's kind of, so it's a little bit hard to really describe something, the feeling of the pleasure that you're getting when you get a certain pleasure, because it's a deeper sense within ourselves. So desire drives our actions, but it's the pleasure that reflects the true nature of our soul. So when we do something that gives us real pleasure, we're touching more of the core of who we are. Okay? Hashem also, he has will, he had ratzon, he desired to create a world that we follow his commandments, that we do what he wants. But he also gets pleasure. Hashem also gets delight when we fulfill his will. So we can understand a bit that Hashem wants us to do something, but do we really understand Hashem's pleasure in what he gets when we do something for him? Think about it. Interesting. Huh?
What are we to him? Are we the front or backside or what? Or both?
No, he's the front and the backside. He desired to create the world, but he gets his pleasure in when we fulfill his pleasure. What is that pleasure? How is that pleasure? How do we explain it? That's more of Hashem's care. It's not something that we can really comprehend or grasp what that really is. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So back to King David. King David HaMelech, his description of the Torah by calling it song is more of an outer description. Because he's on the surface. Oh, yes, we do the mitzvahs, we do them daily. It's nice to do the mitzvahs. It's good, beautiful, blah, 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 blah. It's repetitive. Like a song. Like, maybe you don't get bored of it, but doesn't necessarily make you really have a deeper understanding or deeper feeling or passion for the mitzvahs. We do the mitzvahs even if they have no logical explanation, and that is Hashem's desire. Okay, we don't see the pleasure Hashem gets from each of those mitzvahs that we do. We don't really understand the deep pleasure that what each one is. So one time a man came to a big, I think we discussed this Rabbi before, Rabbi Dean Steinsaltz, Rabbi Dean Evan Israel. He just passed away in 2020, 2021. He translated the Talmud into English, just to explain. He had a major, great brain, amazing brain. And the man came to him and said, when I pray, when I daven, it just feels so repetitive. Every day, the same words, the same thing, same old, same old. It's really boring. And the rabbi goes back to him, how could davening, it's not davening that's boring, it's you that are boring. And the man says, what? How do you say that about me? And the rabbi explains is that if every day you're changing, you're growing, then when you daven every day, it's going to be a whole new experience. But if you're just the same and you don't change, then the davenings will be the same and boring. So think about that. It's hard to think about that, right? Every day we try to think a little bit how we grew, a little bit how we changed, a little bit how we're different, and take our approach, our connection to God from that perspective. Okay, I'll just read this little thing because you guys can see it. Our actions and feelings are on the surface, and ratzon is what we want, and tainug is the deep enjoyment that shows who we really are. In the same way, Torah expresses God's will, while his deeper delight is unknown to us. Okay, and now text number 9. Anna, are you up for it? It's a long one.
Yes.
Okay.
Mitzvot are called God's supreme will. The inner core of that will is delight. King David's praise, your statutes were like songs to me, refers to the supreme will of mitzvot, which is considered external relative to God's delight. Think of a melody you love. You can play the same tune over and over. It stays sweet. In fact, when a song really speaks to you, you replay it and the pleasure doesn't fade, it deepens. So too with Tupim, a shak is a mitzvah whose reason isn't accessible, like red paper or kahadas. In truth, all mitzvah are Tupim because the reasons we're given are not the real, ultimate reasons, as they exist above. To us, they're God's decree. This is his will beyond our grasp.
Continues.
And that's precisely why they are exceedingly sweet. What we touch in every mitzvah is his will itself, which no created mind can comprehend. Since will isn't something we can grasp, the will in tzitzit is for us no different from the will in separate. It's like hearing the same beloved melody again and again. Because it is his will, it delights us each time anew.
Okay, so we understand that Hashem has his will as his desire, but we really don't understand the pleasure that he gets from it. So if you look at someone's back, like if you have a whole bunch of people just the back facing you, if you know the person really well, you might know who it is. But if you just see a whole bunch of backs, they kind of look the same. It's hard to differentiate who's who. But if you see their faces right away, oh, this person has this eyes, that person has that nose, that person has these lips, and it's much easier to differentiate somebody by their front. So the back side is like the outer, is like the is like doing something on the surface. It's like doing, the mitzvahs from a surface way, and so it's like the desire, the will, and the front is like the inner. You get much more of the core of the person by looking at their face, and that represents more of the pleasure, the inner side of them, and the pleasure. So when we do a mitzvah, we are doing God's will. We don't know exactly what pleasure that is, but we know that every mitzvah we do gives a different, unique pleasure to Hashem. So it's not all the same. It's different for every one of us. We'll read it. That's inside in text number 10. Lana. Okay, one second. I'll say before we go on, just to help you understand it. Here's this. Okay, so Ratzon desire, Sonia, what I said. God's will for creation and mitzvahs, something we can grasp and follow. Tonic pleasure, Pneumius is the inner. God's delight when he sees his creation fulfilling his will or his purpose, and beyond human understanding. Okay, so okay, and now we're going to read the next text.
That is why delight is
Okay, well, remind you guys, we'll go back to all those little explanations after she reads. Okay.
That is why delight is called panim, the inner face, while will is called ahon, the other side. By way of analogy, the neck, back, and nape, collectively called the achoraim of the body, are all covered evenly by one layer of skin. They share the same surface with no visible distinction between one part and another. The face, by contrast, is comprised of unique features: eyes, ears, mouth, each distinct in form and in function. So too with mitzvot. On the level of will, they all share one form. This is his will. As lofty as that will is, it remains a single, undifferentiated expression. But on the level of delight, which is their essence, each mitzvah is unique. Each reveals a different, wondrous delight without limit or end. This is the special delight of the King himself. Blessed be he within his very essence.
Okay, so let's go back to those. Okay, so King David's description of Torah as song highlight the outer aspect of the mitzvahs as they reflect God's unchanging will. Mitzvahs can be repeated without revealing the inner meaning. Chukim, which is statutes, a certain type of mitzvah, can be performed without understanding the reasoning. And here, okay, this is what she just said. The back is uniform, the face is distinct, the back of the head corresponds to the outer layers. For every mitzvah is driven by the same will of God. The face corresponds to the inner dimension. It shows his joy in every mitzvah. Okay, let me write that. Okay, so now back to the idea of the tribe, the family of the Levites that had to carry the Aron. Okay, how did they carry it? They held the poles on their shoulder and they faced each other. So their faces were to each other as they held it.
Sideways?
What?
Did they walk sideways?
I guess sideways-ish. I don't know. Yeah, sideways. And their backs were to like the outside. Okay, because this represented the inner dimension of the Torah. The inside the Aron had those tablets that showed what Hashem's inner core, the inner Torah is. Those miraculous tablets, those up in five nature. And that showed the inner dimension of Torah and our deep connection to Hashem's delight, his pleasure. The shoulders, which hold the Aron, we said like the back, and that shows the surface level of the Torah. And that, so that shows like the will. So if a person lives, let's say, a life with Torah, he does what he has to do, or she does what she has to do, and does, and very nice. They might live a life of doing Torah mitzvahs, but from a way of acharayim, from the back, like from a surface level of functioning of observing mitzvahs. Just like the shoulders had to carry the Aron while they face the Aron, our actions when we do those mitzvahs, even though we do them all the time and this and that, we need to try to align them with the inner side of Torah too. So not just say, okay, this is what I do, but try to find the inner feeling, try to find the inner pleasure, try to find the inner connection, and try to make it more innate within you when you're doing these mitzvahs, when you're doing these observances.
What if you think that you're giving Hashem pleasure when you do that?
That's good, as long as it gives you like passion. I think what I'm saying, like kind of try to do it with more passion.
Like if there are people what they call people pleaser. So instead of being a people pleaser, you can do Hashem's pleaser. That's
right. But when people are doing people pleasing, are they just doing it, or are they really doing it? So you want to do it because yes, you're doing Hashem wants, you know it's good, but then you're doing Hashem wants and you really feel it more. You know what I'm saying? Try to do it with more feeling.
I'm just saying that I think this is the people pleasing is a byproduct of something that we could do, like we could use this and do a holier thing. I think so.
Okay, because I'm thinking that people pleaser is like a fault. They're not really doing it.
Because we're not supposed to, just like people worship money. Instead of worshiping money, we can worship Hashem or worship.
Right, so you start like that. But you start like that. But you want to make it align with what's inside you too. Want to make it your, you know what I'm saying? Not just do it on an outside way, but also like internalize it, is what I'm saying. Okay, so by David calling the Torah song, he was focusing on the outer dimensions of the Torah. He was focusing on the surface. And it showed, yeah, he had a surface level connection with the Torah, but it wasn't like to show that you should internalize it. He was missing out the idea of internalizing the Torah, internalizing the mitzvahs, internalizing trying to do what Hashem wants. And he missed that deep and that internalization, that inner part of Torah, even though we may not understand it or may not really grasp it all the way, we have to understand that that's the real life force. That's the real life. That's the really inner part of Torah. That's really the inner part of God. And that's a more spiritual aspect of the Torah. That's a more spiritual aspect of God. So we may not understand it, but we should at least have some sensitivity towards it. So like by touching the Aron, you're like, don't realize the sensitivity that you should have. That's such a holy object, you shouldn't touch it, right? So the sin, quote unquote, that he did was not realizing how spiritual the Aron was, like not really taking the full depthness of the inner core of the Torah, the inner spirituality of the Aron, of the Torah, of these things. So that's where he want to say he fell short. Because not internalize the Torah to that way, not looking at the Aron as just an external obligation to not to touch it, but understanding there's a very deep spiritual part to it too. So I guess part of the subclass is to really understand that the sensitivity to the spiritual, even though we don't always understand it or don't always feel it, we still have to know that it's there. So when we do mitzvahs, I have to leave? Okay. Okay. Bye-bye. When we do mitzvahs, we do what we do, and it's very, very nice and fine. But it's like the same mode every day. It's only a surface observance. But we need to do the mitzvahs, and we need to do it face to face. We need to do it with a more inner core, more inner understanding. Make it new, make it exciting. Discover new things when you're learning Torah. Discover new things when you're doing mitzvahs. Relish in the mitzvah, relish in the moment. And see it from a different place. See it not just, okay, it's a nice thing to do, I'm doing this and this, but really try to understand on a deeper level and really understand that there's more to discover and and you're giving a deep, deep, deep pleasure to Hashem when we do those mitzvahs. Okay. And that is, I guess, the lesson of our class. Really try to internalize the mitzvahs. Realize that it can make it a really pleasurable and beautiful experience. Stop the shoe, stop the record.
And everybody remember.
I don't want to stop the record. Yeah, I spoke about it before.
I always thought that songs were supposed to be like a deep spiritual,
Once again,
essence, when the songs were